Welcome back, everybody, to Two Marine Dads, and this is episode 5 of our podcast. It's funny because John and I have been sitting here planning, trying to figure out what we were going to talk about specifically, show prep, and we were kind of running around in circles, not having any good ideas because we don't want to beat a dead horse. I'm sure as much as much as we are, you guys are all tired of hearing about COVID and the election and all the other bullshit that's going on. You're interested in it, but you're tired of hearing the same shit over and over again. And the funny thing is John and I started talking about an hour and a half ago, and we got into about 10 different conversations that we probably should have recorded for the podcast, but we didn't. So you guys will get a little bit of a second flavor of it here. It kind of boils down to what and I might be not wording this well, but a scary or a bright future. What's ahead of us. And I don't just mean, optimism versus pessimism, long term. I mean, do we have awesome 4 years ahead of us? Do we have a great 1 year and bad 3 years? And yes, I'm purposely pinning it to the presidential cycle because it seems like that's how it goes. Or is it going to be bad 4 years and another good 4 years? What's coming for us? And what do John and I see? And it's not that cut and dry. It really isn't. It's not, because you can see it right now in the country. There's a tale of two stories with COVID right now, specifically, right? You've got certain places like California that are under lockdown, even though it doesn't seem to help. New York
starting tonight at midnight. Yep.
New York is closing schools, or they did before Thanksgiving, and now they're opening them back up again, elementary schools. Completely against the science. The dipshit politicians always say they're for.
Yep.
So I got into kind of thinking more philosophically about that, if you will, and what that means for the future for us. I could have a great 4 years ahead, but other people could have an awful 4 years. And on top of that, when you have a media that can literally gaslight you into believing something that isn't true, like Trump saying all Mexicans are racists, or that Hunter Biden didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
And you start to understand that that's all that some people absorb. It makes sense how you can have so many different, such broadly separated views on the way the country's running right now. Because for some people, things are going fantastic. It's going great. They're making more money than they've ever made. Even through this summer with lockdowns and COVID and everything being dialed back, the economy's booming in some places. I mean, literally, you've got people fighting over PlayStation 5s and paying 3-4 times what they're worth. It's a gaming.
Right.
If you're not familiar, it's a gaming system that just got released. And that doesn't happen when things are bad. People don't care about PlayStations unless everything else is going hunky-dory for the most part.
Right.
But on the flip side, you see a lot of these news articles about people in, last week in, was it Long Island? It wasn't Long Island. It was Staten Island in New York. Bar owner, he was in these colored zones. It reminds me of the old threat levels that make no sense to anybody. But his zone was red, and 2 blocks over was green, or whatever it was. What it boiled down to is he had to close, but the bar 2 blocks down could stay open, even though he had no case and there was no super spreader events where he did. They'd spent all the time and energy making his bar safe, and the sheriffs rolled up and shut his business down and barricaded it so he couldn't even go in. That's how extreme.
Yeah, no, they arrested him. They arrested him. They put him. They clapped him in irons and took him away.
But then when the protesters showed up a day or two later, the sheriffs were literally lined up in front of the bar, preventing people from entering it.
Right, not the NYPD. It was the sheriffs that did that. And the NYPD, I don't think.
We talked about the Constitution, John. What's funny is when everybody thinks of, and it's because of the civil rights and stuff like that, right? Everybody thinks about the First Amendment and the right to peaceably assemble, right? They think of that's protesting, right? No. The right to peaceably assemble means you get to go wherever you want and do whatever you want, as long as you're doing it peacefully, and they cannot stop you. But guess what?
Petition the government to redress your grievances.
Well, no. That's part of it. Yeah, but the right to assemble, peaceably assemble.
Yep.
Means you can do anything. I can peaceably assemble for a birthday party if I want to. Thanksgiving. We can go celebrate a football game. It doesn't matter. All of those you're allowed to do. But the funny thing is everybody is so scared that they're letting one of the First Amendment
That's huge. Yeah.
to
Like
get
you should
taken
be able
away
to
from
assemble to
you.
have a meal to run your business. The
Right.
rest of it. Yeah. You know, and they're shrugging it, going, okay, infringe, and I've heard quite a few people actually say, that the government can't control this if everybody collectively decides to not close their doors. There's no way they can enforce it.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd be able to enforce a handful of people, but they're just like, you know what? You want to suspend my business license? I don't care. I'm still open.
And on
And
top of
then
that, you're having law enforcement refuse, like in California, refuse to enforce it.
yeah, yeah, like to
I
enforce
think
it.
there's
There
been
was
some in New
numerous
York as
sheriffs.
well.
Yeah, there's numerous sheriffs out here saying, you know what, go have Thanksgiving, go have Christmas. We're not gonna make law-abiding citizens who are going to see grandma and cook a turkey and catch up for the year. We're not gonna make you a criminal,
Right.
you know. And that's the whole thing. I mean, what are you gonna do? You're gonna arrest your 90-year-old grandmother for having a party at her house? I mean, it's absurd. But
You
if
know,
enough people,
it's funny because California is literally doing things like turning people's water off and power.
yeah, they're doing that now because of high winds and stuff too. Yeah.
Well, no. They literally in L.A. and it wasn't the governor. It was a mayor in L.A. Um, it was a YouTuber or some kind of social media influencer threw a big party at their house, and the mayor showed up. They found out, someone told on them. They shut the
It's
guy's
probably
power.
in the
They shut the guy's power and water off.
he probably broadcasted it, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's
but still,
absurd.
but the idea. Think about that. You've got somebody who
So
has a voice and can stand up for themselves, and the government is literally taking away your ability to survive. I don't know about you, but California gets pretty fucking hot. Without air conditioning, it can be downright lethal.
yeah,
And last time I
but I
checked, we
mean, yeah,
needed
I
water.
was going to say that's a public safety. There's two parts to that you just touched on. If I may jump in, like you paid for a service out of your pocket. You gave money for an exchange of goods for something. So you held up your end of the contract by paying for your water and your power. And then the government comes in through no purpose of your own. It's not like you're building bombs or something with it, and shuts you down for
Because you were
being legal.
literally exercising your First Amendment rights.
That's absurd. That's a government overreach, by definition, by anybody's definition. Not some crackpot in the middle of the mountains. We're not talking Ted Kaczynski here. We're talking anybody with a freaking fifth grade education knows that's government overreach.
The
You know,
and it begs to venture, or it begs to wonder: is real hardship coming in some of these places? And I think it is. I mean, you've got people fleeing big cities, but primarily democratically run ones, like heavy democratically run, because there's cities that are democratically run or halfway or whatever. But the ones you see, the C-level elites, if you will, the ones in New York and L.A. and San Francisco, people are fleeing these places, and
yeah,
the whole rules are for thee, not for me thing, which is becoming astoundingly. What was it? The mayor of Austin, I think, was telling everybody they shouldn't travel for the holidays, and he was doing it from a fucking web conference in Cabo.
yeah, yep, yeah. Where they're saying wear your mask, and then they're indoors in a party, without
Yeah,
their masks on, and
at
there's
that
more than 12 people.
the now
You know,
famous French Laundry fucking place where there's been about it's like the cool place for the politicians to go and disobey the rules, and then literally a day later talk about how you need to follow the rules. Like there's been like 4 politicians that have done that, including Gavin Newsom.
it's not idle gossip. My friend Bucky Squints, former Marine, we served together. Him and I chit chat every now and again. He saw us on a podcast and looked me up. Him and I were just talking about the other day. He lives in Long Island, and I asked him. I said, "Do you live above the, whatever parallel it is that they shut down?"
The DMZ.
And and he was laughing at, and I told him, Barnard, we had a project over in downtown Manhattan. I asked him, I said, "How's Manhattan?" He goes, "Dude, it's empty." He's like, "There's nothing." He's like, "It is." He's like, "I've never seen that before." And he's born and raised in New York. So it's interesting to hear like a firsthand, account that it's not idle gossip. It's not just some right wing conspiracy or whatever to say that Manhattan is vacant. He's like, dude, there's nothing happening in Manhattan. Which when I was there, you couldn't walk 5 feet, without hitting 5 different people and hearing 10 different languages. It was just hustle bustle. So I'm amazed to hear that it's dead there.
Well, I mean,
You know,
as far as I'm concerned, New York City gets everything it deserves. It voted that fucking. Not only did it vote, the Cuomo in to fucking governor, because that's essentially who it voted him in, is the city, but they've got De Blasio as a mayor, and they get everything they deserve. They get everything they deserve because that fucking idiot. It's the exclamation point to the idea that stupid people are in charge everywhere. It's not our best and brightest anymore, because the best and brightest don't want anything to do with it, especially after watching what Trump's gone through for the last 4 years. Who in their right mind would want to volunteer for something like that unless you are so corrupt that you can make sure everybody else stays quiet? And
right? Or they're all
the
bought. Yeah.
they're just downright dumb. There's a lot of really dumb people in Congress, and running all the governments all over the place. I mean, fucking look at Nancy Pelosi, for Christ's sake. She's now okay with a small relief bill, after the election. It's not conveniently. It's because it's after the election. And her excuse was because it's a new president and there's a vaccine. You know what, bitch?
Which
I don't even know. There's so many words I have for her that I can't say. It.
So
You want to talk
people
about
in her
just an
state,
awful,
people here where I'm
awful
at,
person.
yeah, awful. She has people starving here with no means of income. She shut this, she was part to shutting this state down. One of the biggest, was it the fifth biggest economy in the world or something like that, or the eighth biggest economy in the world?
Some
If you
point, it
just
was
took
the
California,
fifth. Yeah.
whatever it is, it's insane. She's, oh yeah, party to shutting it down, blaming her hairdresser for setting her up. I mean, the list goes on with this one. She just didn't want Donald Trump to have a W right before the election and come to some sort of an agreement.
Yeah.
And she was, what was it, 900?
She didn't want him to have a win.
Right. And she's okay with a $900 billion stimulus package now, and Trump
Now,
was offering like 1.6 or
1.5,
1.8 or something trillion.
and she wanted 4.
Yeah.
And the only reason
Right.
her and Schumer wanted 4 is because it was full of bailouts for fucking New York and California for their bad policies. That's all
Right,
it
for all
was.
the
That was the difference between the Democratic bill. That was the only primary difference in relief. Is you had the Republican bill and then the Democrat bill, which piled in billions of dollars of bailout money for these fucking states. Which means every other state in the country is going to bail out. Which means they don't suffer. They don't have to pay for their bad decisions. Which means they'll just keep fucking making them.
Right, which means they'll get reelected and they won't get changed. Yeah, like, and it's absurd. You know, um, we talked about, the just bad decisions. Recently, right before we started recording here, we were talking about just insane, like the drug laws up in, was it Oregon? You talked about just stupid people running. And I mean, I get the whole concept of not putting somebody in jail and getting them rehab and all that. But when you look into what they just passed, like 40 pills of oxycodone are legal. Like, how is that not considered being a dealer if you don't have a prescription and you have 40 pills of oxycodone? Like, that's not like, oh, I have one. I had a headache and somebody gave me one. Like, or 40 units of LSD.
You're kind of arguing semantics. You're trying to fucking talk about something shitty inside an already shitty bill, because the idea that you're going to the positives to negatives, and I guess it'll play out. I guess Oregon gets to be the test bed. Everybody's talked about how bad the war on drugs is and this, that, and the other. Well, Oregon gets to be the test bed now. We'll see. Do things get better or do they get worse? California, San Francisco has done nothing but make it easier to get your hands on drugs with the idea that they would treat people. That's fucking worked out fantastic.
Oh, they've given them safe space to shoot up. They've given access to clean needles. I mean,
and that was
supposed
to make things better. And last time I checked, California is not the best place on the country right now for homelessness or drug use. Not even fucking close.
Especially in San Fran. Yeah, especially in places like San Fran. Out here where I'm at, kind of out in the country, it's a lot different. People here are hardworking guys who just want to raise their families and stuff like this. They're not, trying to ram their ideals down your throat. But I mean, then on top of that, and it's not just the government that's acting stupid. It's corporation now, like you were pointing out, the NASDAQ,
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have all seen this. And I guess we can put links in the comments. I hadn't even thought about it or in the description. But so the NASDAQ is going to require companies that it lists to have at least one woman and one minority or LGBTQ, did I get it right?
Yep.
Director
Yep.
on their board, or they're going to get removed from the exchange. Now, aside from the inherent stupidity of that requirement, the absolute stupidity of that requirement, it begs to question the legality of it. So right now, it's been a good news article, and that might all end up being all it is a PR move by and news grab by the NASDAQ organization to make it look like they're forward looking, and they could quietly on some Friday night repeal it and never or ever actually enforce it. But I don't think they can.
It's who can outwoke the next person.
If a company happens to have that, great, good for them. And I would assume that most corporate boards do have a female on them now, and just by population density but just population draw, you've probably got some minority or LG. I mean, what's a minority now? Aren't you a minority if you have gray hair, or if you I mean, does this count people
40,
does this mean that a dude just needs to say he's a woman and identify as a woman? Does that count? Or is that one of the LBG? Is that an LBG? Is that the LGBT? Is that why women and LGBTQ is separate? So the absurdity of this is so dumb, and the reality of it is it completely violates Title IX, in my opinion. I'm not a lawyer. So I can't give legal advice.
You could have an entire white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, WASP by definition, board, as long as one of them, like Pocahontas, identifies as being sort of minority or a woman,
and then meet that quota. No. So all you would have to have. So here it is, John. I got it. You have two dudes, right? One identifies as a chick. So now you got your woman covered, and he's dating another dude. So does that make him gay, or does that make him straight?
Or does that make him heterosexual?
Right. Yeah. He identifies as a woman. But I think that covers it, right? There's your woman and this dude. This dude's gay because he's dating somebody with a dick. And this one qualifies as a woman, even though he's saying he's a woman, still has a dick. So that makes this guy gay.
So two people can identify as three different things there. You can have a gay relationship, a straight relationship, meet the NASDAQ quota.
You just need to sign up for consulting. I just solved the biggest problem in fucking corporate America's facing in the next 6 years. Just like that.
I just thought of something, dude. You just opened the doors up for the Ku Klux Klan to be diverse. They just need one dude in the hood to be like, you know what? I'm black today.
The thing is, this is an absolutely fucking absurd conversation, but it's borderline serious. Seriously. Like, this could end up being could you imagine being the judge sitting in a courtroom listening to somebody like me explain it like this and be like, I'm fucking retiring. I'm done with this. I don't want to. This is it.
I'm out. Somebody else grab this gavel.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get it, man. Like something like that. And then you read about, like no joke. Here in the state of California, they voted, I guess this June, to repeal the portion of the Constitution
their version of Title IX, basically. It's not Title IX, but it's
state level. It's not Title IX because it's state. I think they called it something different.
Yeah, but yeah,
and
so they could pass repeal that,
so they could so they could discriminate legally here, and enforce what you're talking about. Now, I heard Jordan Peterson say this, and he was like, well, he was talking to a gal who was talking about an engineering firm hiring 50% men and 50% women engineers.
Yeah.
And Jordan Peterson's, argument to this was, it was very clever. It was very intellectual, not clever.
Everything he does is clever.
Yeah. I feel like a secretary when I'm listening to him sometimes. Like, yeah, that's great. But no, his point was that you could do that on a micro level. You could probably do that, for like one corporation could.
Yeah, because you're going to run out of fucking women engineers.
Exactly. You run out of women engineers. And it's not a product of, someone's being discriminatory. It's that you would water down the quality of engineer. You'd have to lower the bar so low to get that many females in there. And like, you would have to look at that on a macro level. How would you do that on a college, et cetera, to get that many females into the pipeline? It's just that they just don't do it. It's not that they can't. It's not that they're not allowed. It's just that they don't. I mean, and vice versa. If you were to think of like nurses, if you were to try to get how many men, you know
Male
what I mean, and,
nurses
and,
and
and force
female
feed
nurses.
this. Right. I mean, I get where they're coming from, and I see it from a place of compassion. But when you try to implement it, you really, really screw a lot of people, you know? And
Well, yeah, and
I mean,
a big thing of it, John, is this battle between new industry and old industry, and some of the rewards that come with this is just one of the ways that it manifests, right? Um, is this battle with, and we saw it specifically in the construction engineering side. In like the design side, the design side's far more diverse.
yeah,
I have some theories, but I don't have a lot of facts to back it up because I never worked in the design side. I just witnessed it from outside, but I experienced the inside of the construction side, right? And the reason I think that a lot of women specifically bail on the construction side is because of their goals in life and what they see important, right? As a guy growing up I was always taught that it was important to make a lot of money, to provide for your family and be
yeah,
successful and climb the corporate ladder. That was a status of importance. And it was through the 80s and 90s and to the
yeah.
2000s, but the new modern economy is changing away from that, dude. People are more concerned with their lives than they are their companies. And it's twofold. Companies can preach and talk about how much they care about you all they want, but at the end of the day, if you die, they're looking for a replacement for you a day after you're gone. And if you fuck up
Oh yeah,
bad enough, they don't care that you can't feed your family, you're gone.
yeah. You're gone. Yeah. And the bottom
It's
line is that at the end of the day, corporation can do anything unless it's making profits. Period.
right.
And we
And
can talk about how benevolent they are, and they built parks for the poor and all this kind of stuff. But none of that happens if there's no profits to do it.
well, I think part of the problem
You know?
is though, John, is it gets into and Simon Sinek talks about this a lot with what's important with leadership. And you have companies that are more concerned with the short term than the long term. So they're more concerned with making the next quarter, and specifically publicly traded companies, but even private companies, they're more concerned with the next quarterly statement or their next budget or whatever that's positive, that they'll do anything to make that positive or green or black or however you want to call it. They will sacrifice everything. They will burn out their entire team. They will make people quit. They will fire people. They will do whatever it
Yep.
takes rather than going, okay, you know what? We're going to miss it this quarter, but we're going to double it the next quarter. We're going to do 10
But
times
we're going to
better.
build the
And
apparatus to kick it out. Yeah,
we're going
to
to
knock
keep
the
the
ball into
good
orbit.
people. We're going to keep people happy, and we're not going to churn. And I think that's what's missing in a lot of companies anymore is that there's just this unrealistic expectation that you have to live for the company. The company doesn't live for you. It can't live for you because it won't survive. But it has
Right.
to cater to its people a little bit, or you don't keep good people, because the other company that does will take your people from you. Or they'll
Right.
just go do something on their own. They'll say, fuck off, I'm tired of doing this, it's not worth it anymore. And that also breeds a reward system that is not based in reality. I don't know how many studies there's been done, tons of studies that talk about productivity at work and how once you get basically past 6 hours, sometimes 8, productivity it's almost negative. And in some aspects it is negative.
Yeah.
It's why that there's laws for people that fly, that once you reach so many hours, you're done. You can't fly until you get sleep.
Right. You
And
reach the point of diminishing returns. Yeah.
and that doesn't matter because the reward system is based around not necessarily how much you get done, but how much it looks like you get done. If you sit at work for
Right.
12 hours and only get 4 hours of work done, but it looks like you did a fucking bang up job, you're going to get rewarded. Not only are you going to get rewarded more, the guy that got all this, he got twice as much work done as you did, but did it
But
in
went home
4
early.
hours and went home early, is
Yep.
going to get
Mhm.
absolutely fucking crucified,
Lambert. Yep.
if
Yep.
not fired
He's gonna
eventually.
yeah.
It doesn't matter that he did
Average-
twice the work, because the answer is, well, then he should have just worked his full 12 and got more done. No, that's not how this works. That's not how this works. You're not understanding here. Productivity is something that is limited. It's not an infinite resource. Somebody can't operate at that level of productivity for 12 hours. I mean, some people might be able to, but somebody that is that productive, that can double somebody else's production in a shorter period of time, probably can't maintain that level of productivity for that long because it's taxing.
No, it is taxing. Yeah. The like we studied that in business class. Some of the stuff, some of the studies we talked about back in college was you can crack the whip. You can say, hey, we want to put in 12s, and you'll get a gain. You'll get a gain for about 6 weeks. And then what they found was study after study, after you prolong that for more than about a month and a half, your staff would produce, and not necessarily out of spite or will, it was just their they were burned out. You would produce as much as you did in a 10-hour shift in a 12-hour shift. It was just a natural slow down, and it wasn't like a cognitive, well, we're just going to fuck this and we're just going to slow it down. It was just the guys were burned out, and that's what you got. You ended up back where you started, even though it's costing you more.
Yeah.
It's costing you 2 hours of overtime every day, or 2 hours time and a half, whatever, double time sometimes.
And you can do this on the
get it
hour.
done.
You can do this on the hourly side too. I mean, think about it. I know you guys are doing it down on the wall, and we've done it elsewhere. I know industries do it all over the place. But you set a goal for a crew to reach, and if they reach that crew, they get, like, let's say they got to get 1,000 foot of pipe in, and if they get that
Yep.
1,000 foot of pipe in, they're done for the day and they go home. But they get paid for the full day, right? So if
Yep.
their full day is a 10-hour day and they get done at 8, they still get paid 10 hours, but they get to go home 2 days. And it works out fine because the company's beating its production. It's making money because you're getting that
Yep.
lineal footage in. You're paying the guys more. Everybody wins. But if you
And
did that, you said, all right, you guys got to get this 1,000 foot of pipe in. And then 8 hours rolls around, they hit 1,000 foot, and you go, oh, sorry guys, we got to work 2 more hours. I'm paying you for 2, so you better stay. Yeah, they might get another 100 foot of pipe in, but I can guarantee you tomorrow when you come up and say that, they're going to be like, sure.
Yep. You've destroyed any credibility you have, and you also destroyed any morale that they
Well,
had.
not just that.
Because
I mean,
they were,
on top of that, John. But I'm just the way human nature is. They're gonna go, yeah, sure, we're gonna be done.
Yep.
They're not gonna speed up.
Yeah.
They're not gonna work their ass off to do that anymore.
Nope.
They get no gain out of it. You get all the gain,
Right.
even though they're working for 10 hours like you're paying them.
Yep.
They're not gonna bust their ass. You're not giving them a reward system.
I've had conversations on the opposites, and take that and flip it on its head. I've conversations with bosses where it was like, hey, we need to put in 12 hours a day. And then so you do that and you put in 12, and you look at the extra gain that you got, and it's like, well, we got 2 extra loads in, that equates to about, 8 more feet of whatever trench. And you do the arithmetic and you're like, it just cost us money to work 12. And we got very little gain out of it.
From personal
Why are we doing
experience,
this? Send the guys home, at 10.
You know how many times I would fucking be at work late, and I'm talking like a 14-hour day or 16-hour day, because I was working on something in AutoCAD, and I'd work, like, everybody's gone home. It's 7:30. I'm still cranking away, and I'm still feeling pretty good, but then I hit that wall. 8 o'clock rolls around, and I kind of sit back. I go take a quick walk around the office, get a glass of water, take a leak, come back to my office, and sit down and look at what I've been doing, and I realize my last 3 hours have been wasted because I was going in the wrong direction because my brain is slowing. So not only did I not accomplish anything in those 3 hours, it probably is actually going to cost me an additional half hour to just unfuck what I just screwed up. Yeah. So I got to go home, get rested, even though I'm pissed off and brains all fried because I did that. And I got to get there in the morning. Not only did I not make my goal from last night, and I'm probably going to hear about it from my boss or whoever's talking to me, but I got to spend a half hour getting back to where I was at fucking 7 o'clock the night before.
Yeah.
And that happens, and that's just my personal experience with like AutoCAD, but that happens to everybody across the board whenever you work long hours like that. I mean, the safety industry has done research on when you run guys long hours, accidents go through the roof. I mean, you can see you're hunting through the woods. When do you twist your ankle? Is it 10 feet outside of the truck or 10 feet before you're back to it on your way back? Because you're fucking tired. You're not watching where you're walking, and you slip and fall because you're dragging your feet. You're just exhausted.
I think the DOT has something to say about that like 80% of or 90% of the accidents that happen occur on like the last 10 miles of the trip or something like that.
That'd
or
be
car
interesting
accidents.
to look at, but
it's something amazing. It's a really high number, like exactly what you're saying.
I guess we kind of tangent off there, ranted a little bit about some of that shit, but that whole corporate, kind of wind it back, the new corporate versus old corporate, and there is a good new corporate out there. There, you talk about new corporate, and people probably jump to the NASDAQ thing where that's what people see as new corporate, right? And that's not new corporate. That's batshit crazy land corporate. New corporate is looking at research and doing what is best for a company, not what's best on the quarterly statement and make shareholders. Shareholders are the worst people to try and make happy in a company because they have they're short-term investors. That's what a shareholder is a short-term investor.
Yeah.
They don't care about the long term. They care about fucking this year's taxes and how much they have to sell and fucking pay taxes on. That's not the best interest. That's never in the best interest of a company. So, and I recommend people who haven't listened to Simon Sinek, especially if you're a manager, especially if you're in the corporate world, listen to what the guy has to say. I don't think he speaks the gospel. I don't think everything he has to say is correct, but he gets into stuff about infinite game theory and other stuff that's just super interesting. And if you apply it in your everyday life, it changes things quite a bit.
Yeah, infinite game. I think I have heard what you're.
I know you have, because I
listened to
beat
some
you
of
over the
it.
head in Vegas with it for a while.
But like,
So there's not really any good way to segue to what I want to talk about next. I guess you got the media's wrapped up in the way the election is and talking about, the office of the president of elect or president elect. Like, I didn't even, that doesn't exist. There's no such thing.
yeah,
But
no.
you look at it and I wonder what happens if Trump does win the election through legal means. Let's put it that way. I think right now it's safe to say that Trump's not going to win through vote. Now, you can argue about whether the vote was legitimate, whether it was cheated, whatever. I'm not going to get into that because that gets beat up. So many people beat that horse right now. I don't even want to fucking talk about it. I'm tired of listening to that. But let's just, you kind of brainstorm a little and you think about what happens if Trump wins this through legal means, right? They manage to, for whatever avenue it goes, they get votes thrown out. They get states that don't certify, or they get it to, I forget what it's called, but basically the legislature votes on it. And each state gets a vote, and there's way more red states than there are blue states. And it goes that way. And the states don't vote for the way the states overturn the election, or however you want to phrase it, right?
Yeah.
And Trump wins this. You are going to have zero trust, not only in the election system, but in the government itself. Because the Democrat,
both sides.
Anybody on the left they're not going to, dude, it's scary to think what that would lead to. But on the right side,
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's scary to what you would think that would lead to. But it's also scary on the other way. Right now, I don't know very many people on the right that have any faith in the election system. They don't.
Right.
Whether it's bullshit or not, there is a lot of appearance of impropriety. And the Georgia elections aren't making that any better because of all the shenanigans that are getting fucking pulled there now. And I talked about that in one of my other videos and how scary it is. But when you count all the votes up, the Republicans won handily. When you look at it as an aspect, if it wasn't an open election, right? I forget what they call it, a jungle election or something like that. Jungle primary, something for the one seat. The other seat had 100,000, 120,000 votes taken by the independent vote, which most independents either don't vote or vote Republican. They don't generally vote. I'm sorry, not independent, libertarian. It was libertarian.
Libertarian.
Now, everybody's like, well, that's awful presumptive of you to think libertarians are going to vote for Republicans. No, you're not understanding what I'm saying. It would be better for you libertarians to not fucking vote for anybody than to vote for the libertarian, because then he would have got over the 50%. And take all that. If all those libertarians that voted and don't vote in this next Senate election, if all they do is don't vote, that's fine. You don't even have to vote for the Republican. Just don't fucking vote. That's okay too, because all things being equal, that senator is still going to win. And if you go look at the jungle primary that happened below, and I think it's jungle, I might be saying the word wrong, but I'm thinking jungle. If you count up all the votes, and we've talked about this in the past, hundreds of thousands of more votes for the Republican side of the ticket. So in my mind, and I'm kind of tinfoil hat wearing here, and I probably deserve to be criticized for this, but the only way for the Democrats to win Senate seats in Georgia is either through legal shenanigans or outright voter fraud. And by legal shenanigans, I mean, ballot harvesting fucking old people's homes, which that might not be legal, but it might be kind of legal, where you just basically go and tell people who to vote for and they fill it out for you because you give them a fucking candy bar. I hate to
Well,
disparage like old people only vote for candy bars, but I can't think there's lots of instances where people show up at like old folks' homes, tell them, vote for this, and we'll give you a $100 gift certificate, or whatever. And the old people, they don't give a fuck, dude. They get $100 gift certificate. And I wouldn't either.
yeah,
If I'm 90 years old, I would not give two flying fucks about who is gonna, especially if I'm like in a home where I'm gonna live for like 2 more years. I know I've only got like 2 years left. I don't give two fucks who the president is.
but that
I can buy my grandkid a new iPod or something.
that happens everywhere. Like I won't say the inner city specifically, but in big cities, you'll see that where that happens where um uh it'll be more like, hey, get on the bus and we'll take you to the voting station. Oh, by the way, there'll be a buffet there, or something like this. And they're not buying the
Right.
vote,
Yeah,
but they're
yeah.
saying, hey, and during the truck ride there or the bus ride there,
They
they're
give a
saying,
big
hey, you should
spiel
go
about
one way or
who
the
you
other.
should vote for. And
Right. So it does happen, but getting back to like what you touched on, I am a libertarian, and a long time I was like, I'm not on any side, I'm on my own side. And then I listened to some I guess some radio show from like Neil Bortz, and he was like, I'm a libertarian, and I was like, that's who I am, I'm Neil Bortz. I'm like, I mean, I'm not like that guy, but like putting it succinctly, I wanted the Democrats to stay out of my wallet, and I wanted the Republicans to stay out of my bedroom. I was like, so I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think as a libertarian, I absolutely align more with the Republican Party than I do with the Democrat Party, just because of their overreach. Like I don't want them controlling what I want to do. I want a free open, economy. Where I diverge from the libertarians is we need a freaking, international policy. Like we need to be a leader in the globe, on the globe. Like if you read your history books, when we were like laissez-faire after World War One, you could argue that our the United States power, not being influenced over in Europe caused, or allowed World War Two to, take place. So we absolutely need to be,
yeah, they don't live in the
on the
fantasy
global
world
stage.
of
Yeah.
the fantasy libertarian world of Ayn
Yeah.
Rand almost, right?
It just doesn't exist. Yeah.
Human nature doesn't let it exist,
Yeah. No, it doesn't
but
allow it. No.
large society can't exist like that. And I don't have a problem with being libertarians. I don't have a problem with people being libertarians. I don't. That it's not what it is at all. In fact, there's a lot of shit with them I agree with. But at the end of the day, when it comes to a two-party system and you do not have a candidate, it doesn't matter what if the system is keeping your candidate down or not. If you have a candidate that doesn't stand a chance,
You
you're
wasted your vote.
it's not no no wasting your vote is not voting. It's worse. You are
Yeah, you're
voting
throwing it.
for you're voting for nothing. You're
Yep.
voting for anarchy essentially because
Yeah.
you are not picking a side in the fight. And that's what it is. That's what you're doing when you're electing right now on the two-party system we essentially have is you're picking a dog in the fight. And if you don't want
Yeah.
to pick a dog in the fight, the only reason you're doing it is for some self-fucking righteous purpose of saying, and this is my personal opinion of it. A lot of people are going to, I have friends that are libertarians that are probably going to hate me saying this, but my opinion, when you do that, you're doing it just so you can get on fucking Facebook and say, I'm a libertarian and I'm proud and I didn't vote for either fucking candidate. Yeah, well, guess what? You know what? You got one of them fucking elected. And it's
Yeah. Yeah.
probably not the
You threw
one
it,
you
threw it
wanted.
away. Yep. You threw it away. If you look back in history, Ross Perot siphoned a bunch of votes away from George Bush. So I
Yeah.
guess the first
Yeah.
one, and if it wasn't for him, maybe the election would have been different. I'm not saying, rewriting history or
No,
whatever,
100%
but
would have been
that
different, dude.
happened.
I don't think that's in
That happened.
dispute.
Yeah.
I think that's
Right.
pretty well established that he gave Clinton the presidency.
Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't that Ross Perot was wrong. It's that, you know, George Bush had the majority,
I mean, I guess
of
I
the
got to thank him
Republican.
for it. We wouldn't have all the blue dress jokes if it wasn't for him.
Klinsky wouldn't have been a thing.
I feel bad for her. I probably better. We'd been better off. She would have been better off if fucking Bush had won, maybe. But
Yeah.
oh, just think, dude.
Ah,
We wouldn't have to listen to Hillary. Wouldn't pop up like a fucking whack-a-mole every fucking 2 weeks to say something, because that's what it feels like. It doesn't even feel
Thanks,
like she's there.
Ross.
It's just like this fucking whack-a-mole that shows up and disappears before you can fucking smash it. That's all Hillary
Appreciate
Clinton
it,
is in
Ross.
politics now.
Ross Perot caused Hillary Clinton. you know, uh, Getting back to the point though, you're, I think you hit the nail on the head. You have a two-party system right now because, and I'll say this, and maybe I'm wrong, but you have this whole Russia thing happening for the last 3 years. Okay. And it's a hoax. It's a hoax. Donald Trump stole the election. Oh my God. And now there's less than there's a overwhelming amount of non-anecdotal evidence that says, there was corruption, there's fraud. I mean, you posted, that you voted in
No, I didn't vote.
Nevada.
I didn't vote. My ballot got sent out. It never got sent back in. Thank God. I watched it. But
Okay.
the reason I raised a big issue out of it is there was two systems that were supposed to remove me from the voter rolls in Nevada. One was the
And it
one
didn't
where I
happen.
manually did it, said, "Hey, I'm moving, remove me from the voter rolls." I sent that in. I didn't track it. It was just a fucking thing you fill out and send to them. And then it's supposed to automatically happen when you register in another state. When I registered here in Montana, and I did it within like a week of moving here.
Yeah, it's not like this was like
And
you did this on
and
like
that
November
was a
1st.
year
You did
that
this
right. That was a
years.
year ago. And
Right.
it's not a that with with Nevada specifically, that's not like a democratic, there being evil thing. That is a incompetence because the Secretary of State of Nevada is a Republican. And the Secretary of State's the one's in charge of that. It's incompetence that led to that. But that
Yeah.
incompetence was a foundation that the Democrats build on top of when they say we're going to send ballots to everybody, whether you asked for them or not. Full
Yeah,
well
absolutely.
knowing that they've got over 300,000 people on the voter rolls that either don't live at the addresses listed, are dead, don't even live in the state anymore, or are not valid electors.
But all that adds up to both sides not trusting in the electoral system, and when you the election system. So when you don't have that trust in the system, that like, hey, when the popular vote says we want Democrat or hey, we want Republican, that the actual, electoral college is going to vote in coordination with what their state said. I mean, I think it's Colorado passed the law saying
Several,
the
many,
popular vote will determine which direction they
many,
go.
a lot of states have. Now,
Yeah,
the one you're
it's
talking about, John,
insane.
you've got the Colorado, California, all blue. These are all blue states, right? Have passed laws that are basically. I don't think they've been. I don't think they've been challenged in court yet. But basically, anybody who's halfway smart says they can't stand that the states. It doesn't matter what the state votes, but the national popular election, whoever wins that gets that state's vote. That's the
Right,
law
which
you're
is,
talking about. Now,
could you imagine being like a part of that state and
you'd
having your
never vote.
electoral
Dude,
college?
If I was Republican, and I wouldn't vote. Dude. Why would you vote in Colorado if you knew the popular vote was going to decide who was your president? Your vote didn't matter anymore,
Well,
which is
then your
exactly
vote
why the
counts
electoral
because the
college is so
popular.
fucking important.
Yeah, but right. It's the what do they call it? The soft tyranny of the masses. Is what that is. That's how California doesn't tell Idaho what to do.
They try.
That's
They sure as
why.
fuck try.
Yeah. Well, they try, right? But I'm saying like that's what our founding fathers were genius when they figured this whole thing out, and set it up. But again, getting back to the point of the two-party system and not being much faith, it's both sides now have a dog in the fight where they're like, I don't trust it. The Democrats are going, no, 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 Donald Trump's
They
going
don't
to use,
trust it if they lose.
right.
If
And
they
then the
win, if
Republicans
they
are
win, they
going, it's
trust it.
voter fraud if they don't win,
Yeah,
you know?
if and this is shown in polls every election cycle overwhelmingly that if you lose, your faith in the election system being honest is lower than and if you win, and I mean like 30 to 60%. Like if you lose, only 30% think the system's good. If you win, 60% thinks it's good, which is how tribal things have gotten and focused
It's
on winning
ridiculous.
how focused on winning people are. It's not even the issues they care about. They just want to win. That's what's the most important thing. And the problem is you have one side now. They talk about the right wanting to take rights away from the left, but that has nothing to do with it. That is, I don't know anybody that wants to take rights away from people other than people on the left. Now they won't say they want to take rights away, but they want to pass laws that limit rights. They want to pass gun laws. They want to pass laws that make you stay at home. They want to pass laws that make you hire people. They want to pass laws that have some states, in some cases, reparations. In some cases, all of this stuff is taking rights away. To do those, pass those laws is limiting rights in some form or another. And what a lot of people that do this and are part of this whole fucking system don't realize, or or want people not to realize is what government really is. Government is just an agreement of a group of people to play by the same rules. That's all government is. And if you get to a point where, and this isn't even talking Civil War like North versus South Civil War, you get to a point where you disenfranchise a large enough portion of the population to where they think they're not being represented anymore, they're going to leave. They're just going to leave. They're going to stop participating. And when they stop participating, so, one scenario, let's say, they win Georgia, right? And the Democrats go full fucking tilt. They stack the Supreme Court. They get rid of the Electoral College. They pass gun laws. It's going to get to a point where, 80% of the square mile measurement of the United States goes, go fuck yourself.
Yep.
We're not participating anymore. I'm not paying you taxes. I'm not following your laws because you're illegitimate and you're now tyrannical and you're no better than King George and we're done. Come try and take it.
Yeah, go enforce it. Yep. And that's the whole thing.
That's scary, dude. That's not Civil War. I don't, and this is why I don't think there'll ever actually be like a hot Civil War, right? Like you would say. You have some of these fucking buffoons in like Antifa, and some of these more militant Black Lives Matters groups that will go to violence, but they'll only do it where there's no pushback. They won't. Once they're met with violence, they scatter. They absolutely fucking scatter. They want nothing to do once they get fought back, and that's why I don't think there'll ever be a civil war, is because there's nobody on the other side to fight the war. Nobody on the left have so much convictions in their beliefs that they're willing to die for them because the beliefs are stupid. Nobody's going to go fucking try to kill somebody because they won't let you, because they don't want to put an LGBTQ board member on. That's not something worth dying over.
Right. No.
You taking away my gun rights, you taking away my ability to feed my children. That's something worth dying over.
Correct. Yeah. Now you've affected me and my ability to feed my family. But, in a bigger picture, when you talking about the election, when you take away the right of the people to choose the next government peacefully, a peaceful transition of power every 4 years here or every 8 years is what's so notable about the United States, is that every 4 years we segue power and everybody buys into the system.
Well, even more frequently than that, every 2 years, dude. Every 2 years.
Or every 2 years. Yeah, you can argue
one House of Congress can potentially, both potentially can, but definitely one every year, every 2 years can change.
But like you had pointed out earlier, the text in the Declaration of Independence actually spells that out. Says, if there's enough people who disagree, the government will be changed. And I hope that's not through armed.
It's not just conflict. And not that just that it's a right, that it's a requirement that people must replace the government. And I'm not advocating for that. I think our governmental system's fucking great. I think the people involved in it are bad. The people are, and it's like everything else. This is why I'll never believe in a fucking socialist government or a communist government or anything like that. Is because if they all played by the rules, sure, it would work, maybe, and probably not. But even if they played by the rules, it's still questionable. They don't play by the rules. It ends up just being a fucking hierarchy of power where the people in power don't play by the same rules as everybody else. And it happens in it doesn't matter what system it's in. But in our current system, at least there's the ability to correct it. Because there's nobody with a fucking boot on your throat saying, you do what I say or I'm going to throw you in jail. You better shut your bar down or you're going to fucking jail. Which, that 2 years ago, that would have been, oh man, you're a fucking, you might as well have a Gadsden flag behind you and be wearing body armor. Okay, there's body armor and a Marine Corps flag, but that was insane 2 years ago. And they just did it to a fucking guy last week in New York. They arrested him for trying to open up his business.
Yeah. They clapped him in irons and took him away. Took him to jail. Blacked up his fingers a little bit. Like that's legit. That's happening because he wanted to open his business. The right of the, the pursuit of happiness. I mean, that's his joy, is to serve people drinks and, food or whatever,
Life, liberty.
And you're saying because of a virus that has a 99.9% chance of survival, that you can't seat a family and serve them. They have the money, you have the food, you can't serve them. Why? But you can go 2 blocks over and arbitrarily, I guess the virus is not to cross 6th Street or whatever. You know, like what the hell are we
or
talking about here?
or before 10. It doesn't come out before 10 p.m.
Right. You know, I'll say this, you know, and when you look at history, and I'm not, you're probably better at this than I am. You are better at this than I am. The when you really look back at the colonists, like the stamp tax wasn't what caused
Wasn't
the
it? It was like
Revolutionary War.
no, but that's the thing is
It
everybody talks
didn't
about the
cause it.
stamp tax. It was like 1%.
Right. Right. And so that wasn't what caused it. Okay. But it was the neat, clean, orderly line that said, we dig our heels in here and we are
Here was the
fucking
line.
done.
We're drawing the line in the
We are
sand.
done. Yeah, we were drawing the line at
Here's the
this. Like
fucking
we were,
Bugs Bunny Elmer Fudd line in the fucking sand.
yeah, exactly. You know, it's like take your fucking tea and go fuck yourself, England. You know,
And
and
it's funny because everybody
and
talks about that. It's like what everybody doesn't realize is they reimbursed
that
the
was like
fucking
buildup.
dude, they threw everything overboard and made a statement, but then they reimbursed the captain. They paid for all the fucking tea.
I didn't know that. Did they
Yeah,
really?
yeah, dude.
We're like, we're sorry that our war affected your profits. Here's
Right.
some money.
Well, because it wasn't his fault, right? He was just a merchant,
No.
but they wanted to make a point, but they didn't want to put that guy out. Like that
Right.
totally that's like like Republicans and conservatives, not necessarily Republicans. I hate to say Republicans, but conservatives when they show up and protest, they leave the place. It's a protest. Like they're
It's
pissed off
clean.
and they hate it, and it's cleaner than when they showed up. When they leave,
And they show up with guns, no one gets shot. You know, like it's
the crime
amazing.
rate drop. This is completely sarcastic, but they show up with guns and the crime rate's lower. Look at the crime statistics in
Trash
DC on the
cans are
day of a
full.
million gun march, and it just drops for like 2 hours.
They're standing next to the cops. Hey, if you need any help, you let us know.
That gun's not loaded, but he could probably beat me with it.
But no, but with all that, and then the racial component, where you got guys that are,
It's just a distraction.
you know, it is a distraction. And I got a phone call from a contemporary, and he made a good point, and he's African American, and I say one of the strongest negotiators I've ever met. And his point was, there's a lot of guys like himself that really work their asses off, like us, that work their asses off to get where we are. And you have something like the NASDAQ come up and say, hey, well, you got to position these people. So now is everybody wondering,
Oh yeah, now
based off
everybody
of what
looks
this
at him
person
and
looks
goes,
like,
"Oh, is he just here because the law
oh,
says he has
is
to
he
be
just
here?"
here? Yeah, but yeah, go ahead and underestimate this guy, and he'll kick your ass, on a on a contract level. But it is. I'm serious, but it is, what it is.
He hasn't met me yet.
The law of unintentional consequences. But all in all, though, segue in here a little bit. Through all like the strife and the weird, crazy shit that's going on, we got some really cool stuff going on.
And I
I
think,
think
John,
America
I
that
want to do this because it's so easy, and everybody does this, right? That does these podcasts and things because it's sensational. Talk about negative stuff
yeah,
because I know where you're going, and I want us to and make it a goal that we end every podcast talking about something hopeful or bright or
yeah,
happy or cool
yeah.
that people have something to look forward to because it's not all negative, dude. Personally, I think everything's going to be fine. I don't think there's going to be a civil war. I think Trump's going to lose the election. Everybody's going to throw a fit for about 2 months, but then all the people that are throwing a fit have jobs to do, so they're going to get over it and go back to fucking work. I think Joe
Yep,
Biden's going to
COVID
have
will
an
go away.
accident with his dog, and Kamala Harris is going to be president in 6 months.
Sure, he actually said this. He actually said those words.
I know, dude.
Fucking idiot. But yeah, you
It's
want him in charge of
mind-boggling to
the
me.
nuclear football? But there's, like I said, it's not all bad. We've got a very strong republic. I think our republic has survived every other president and every other conflict so far.
And thrived.
I think it's going to be and thrived. I think it's a cold day in hell that the United States is going to fall, or that I pray to God we do not have a fucking armed insurrection.
I'd have
That
to
these
think
people
hard, but I don't know that there's a single president that the country came out of worse than it went in with. And I'd have to go look. And obviously I'm gonna go look at like Carter or fucking Truman or not Truman, Ford or
whoever was in charge.
maybe Roosevelt. But I mean, the guy had like 15 terms, so who knows about Roosevelt? But there's not very. It doesn't matter how bad Woodrow Wilson, who arguably in my mind is probably the worst president we've ever had as far as a person is concerned. Even him, the country came out better after than it did before. And so I think that's what it is. And if anything, this could be a blessing in disguise. And there's so much cool shit going on right now that I love looking at. Like I got distracted this week hardcore from all the negative shit just just trying to pay attention, because I do pay a lot of attention, because I like to be able to talk with people. I like to be able to correct shit. Like, nothing drives me like left-wing conspiracy theories on Facebook, like when people post shit about, Trump trying to do a coup. Like whatever. You guys think he paid Russians to pee on him when he's married to Melania. I mean, come on now. But
that radio host
when I see Russian people on the right post shit that's super conspiratory, like, it makes my head fucking explode, because I feel like they're degrading my arguments. All the work that I do to try to show what the real battle is, they're over here talking about fucking, how the coronavirus vaccine is from Bill Gates, and it's, just meant to kill you if you don't follow the line. It's like when in reality, what's going on this week is SpaceX and I say this all the fucking time, and you don't know what this word means. Some people might, but I'm such a fucking SpaceX simp. It's not even funny, dude. I love fucking SpaceX. I love what Elon Musk does. I'm not I don't worship Elon Musk. I think Elon Musk is great. I don't think he's infallible. I think he's done a lot of shit, like when he calls a fucking British Navy SEAL or something a fucking pedo in Thailand. He does a lot of dumb shit. I don't think smoking pot on Rogan's program was probably the smartest thing for a guy who has security clearances to do. But at the end of the day, his SpaceX program...
You can build a rocket, you should be able to smoke a joint. I don't know. I'm a libertarian, though. So
when you look at the process of... Yeah, no. Human rights, whatever. But the fact is, the law is the law, and you know the law, and you still flout it. There's punishment. I mean, how many times has he been in trouble with the CDC?
Hey, let me get a hit of that.
The CDC's come... Or not the CDC. The... what's the fucking financial... FCC has come after him how many times? Because he's like, yeah, I don't think Tesla stock should be worth this much, but it is, so okay. And the FCC comes after him, and it's like I'm just telling the fucking truth. But
yeah, they came after him hardcore. Like within hours, they were fucking coming after him.
What SpaceX has going on right now is, so when we look back at history, we look at moments, right? We look at the D-Day landing, the day of the D-Day landing. We look at the day the Wright brothers first achieved flight. We looked at the day Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon. We look at these days, but we don't, as people, look at the history and the lead up to this, right? Like, all the planning and all the crazy shit that went on in the background for D-Day. The inflatable fucking tanks and airplanes they put on one beach, and the fake ships they sent, and the fake radio waves to make the Germans think we were attacking somewhere else, and the airdrops and everything that went in to make D-Day what it was months and months of work. Same thing with the Apollo. Right. Nobody looked at, I would venture there's a lot of people that if they're not space buffs, they have no idea that Apollo, I think it was Apollo 1. I don't remember which Apollo was. Maybe it was Apollo 11. No. Apollo 1. The astronauts died on the launch pad doing a test.
What was that? It was the O2 I have to look it up.
They had pure O2 in. They caused a spark.
And they all...
Well, they had no way to egress the crew, and the guys burned alive inside the capsule. I think it was Apollo 1. I could be wrong. Anyways, a lot of people don't even understand that happened, and how many that Apollo 11 people, you think about it, Apollo 11 is the first one to step foot on the moon. There was 11 tries before that step on the moon. One of them literally being, they sent guys to the moon to do the guy, I think it was Apollo 10. They went to the moon and came around. They had everything on board. And NASA knew, because they know fucking astronauts. It's like Marines, dude. They did not put enough fuel on the fucking spaceship that if they went to the moon, they could get back. Because they knew if they put enough fucking fuel on there, those fuckers would have hopped in and gone to the fucking moon. Even though that wasn't the mission.
It's right there. Yeah, here.
They did. These guys had to go around the moon and watch it from that close and come back to Earth, because that's the orbit to the moon it's a free return trajectory, so that once you leave the Earth's atmosphere, if something went wrong, the orbiter would go to the moon, make an orbit, and then come back and come into the Earth's atmosphere and re-enter. That's how safe all this shit was, all the work they did to make, I say safe, it was extraordinarily dangerous. That was some of the precautions they took to make sure that they could get the guys back. Maybe not alive, but at least they wouldn't be dead in space. But SpaceX is the process that's going on right now with SpaceX, and has been going on for years, because I don't want to take away from Falcon 9 and everything that's accomplished, but SN8 is going to launch this week. SN8's getting ready to launch this week, and it's one of the prototypes for the Starship. And what Starship is going to do for the human race, the human species, and progress, and the door it's going to open up is going to make the Wright brothers look like the invention of the ballpoint pen. Super cool invention. Might have changed some things. And I don't mean to do that like hyperbolically either.
Flight, you're not belittling the Wright brothers, but this is such a leap.
Powered flight changed the world. Absolutely changed the world.
And this is going to do it again.
In the 1800s, the idea that you could get from Europe to the United States in less than a week it didn't even comprehend. You couldn't do it.
Yeah,
you couldn't
or cross the United States in under 6 weeks.
All the ripple effects of being able to do that now in 5 hours, 6 hours, that you can cross that vast amount of space in that amount of time. That's going to look like a drop in the bucket for what Starship is. And I have full faith that Elon Musk and his team that he's built at SpaceX is going to be able to accomplish this, because they've already accomplished what everybody said they were completely batshit crazy for doing. People that grow up today think that reusing boosters is going to be, it's going to be like people that don't understand fucking old school hard drives versus SSDs and how fast they work. They're going to be like, wait, you don't reuse your rockets? Why would you do that? You know, what is so commonplace, they land, I think it was their 68th or 78th yesterday. I believe it was yesterday. They landed their 68th booster. Returned 68, goes up, comes down, lands on a fucking barge out in the middle of the fucking Atlantic Ocean. It lands on a barge.
That's literally you're landing a pin on top of a pin. By way, it goes up to air. I mean, you're landing on this teeny tiny little fucking target.
Everybody talks about a speeding bullet. That fucking rocket ship's traveling about 9 times that speeding bullet.
18,000 miles an hour. Yeah, 17, whatever it is.
But it's commonplace to the point now where they're like, okay, this is easy to land a rocket ship. Let's figure out how to recover everything else. They've got a giant boat
splashing down in the Atlantic.
They've got a boat with a giant catcher's mitt net on it called Bodie McBoatface that catches the fairings.
Dude, just think about the implications of this. So, like you were saying, it was going to go. It's going to head up, hit 41. They're going to test it to 41,000 feet today or tomorrow. Hopefully if the weather cooperates and everything. But in 3 to 5 years, you're talking like, commercial flights, across the planet. You can go from what was it?
Well, more so
Hong Kong to
New York in in an hour or whatever it is. Yeah. I mean, when you talk about orbital speeds, like the space station circles the Earth in 90 minutes. So think about that. Yeah. 90 minutes, it covers the entire planet.
All the way around.
So you don't have to get going that fast. In fact, you don't want to, because your re-entries and stuff in science, whatever. But more so than that, that's like a side effect. That ability is going to be a side effect to what Starship does. Starship is going to open up travel like the steam-powered ship did. No longer do you need the winds, right? Right now, you have to use ungodly, in order to get shit into, the hardest thing is getting shit into space. Getting around space is easy. Like, I forget, I'm get 100% of statistics made up online, or 100% of statistics are made up online kind of deal. That's what this is, but it's pretty close, right? If you look at the amount of fuel it takes to get something to Mars, it's like 95% of it is just to get into Earth orbit. 95% is just to get that fucker up and get it to where it's circling the Earth. And then it takes 5% to get it the rest.
I had like an 8th grade math teacher tell me that a fart would get you to Mars, which is right. If you're in space,
right?
So if you're already there,
the hurdle is getting to space, right? And the cost has been absurd and it's always measured in per kilogram, but per pound, essentially, tens of thousands of dollars per pound to get into space. And I could Google it, but my screen turns white and blooms me out and I don't want to do it right now. But the potential for Starship it's not just going to cut it in half or do quarter of it. It has the potential to make it 1/10 the cost.
Yeah.
When you get
Starship can hold 100 metric tons.
When you get it to that, it can get 100 metric tons to low Earth orbit, which is insane.
Yeah.
Now once you do that, now what you allow, because right now there's no stepping stone in space. Some people might say, okay, the ISS is a stepping stone. No. The ISS is it's like the fucking ship in Waterworld. That boat that fucking what's his face was on in Waterworld. It's kind of there, but he still needs to stop for supplies. And his most favorite thing on the ship was a fucking tomato plant. That's the ISS. It's not a stepping stone. Nobody comes to his boat to go somewhere else.
No. And the ISS was, and so far our entire space program, and there'll be people out there who are going to argue, shoot me down on this, but the lunar landing was about flags. The United States put a
I
flag
don't
on,
know.
and Russia
Anybody
did.
who's halfway
You know,
intelligent is going to argue with that,
right?
dude. Kennedy.
And the ISS, yes, they've done a lot of research and stuff like that. It was just a collaboration
Well,
of
the
countries
ISS has
coming
been
together.
groundbreaking. I'm not trying to diminish the
You know,
ISS, but
yeah,
you're trying. I'm not
it.
saying what. That's not what it is.
But right, but this has the potential to explode and bring private enterprise into the mix. Not
Unbelievable
just
private
research,
enterprise, dude.
but like
Not government funded
have
research.
corporations.
It's not a science project that Congress gets to fuck around with the budget with. This is
Right.
people out there to make money, dude.
People who have to
Starship
produce.
is Starship. You're going to see a whole new line of not just entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are obviously, but labor, and we're going to start losing guys in the construction industry because they're going to be like, nah, I'm going up to space. They pay me about $100. You want to pay me? You want to pay me $20 an hour? They're going to pay me $300 an hour because I'm going to go build a fucking space station for 6 months in space.
I mean, and this is going to sound like I'm out there like Pluto, which is no longer a planet, by the way. But you
fuck you.
You can look at it and go, there are no joke. You could go mine a fucking moon orbiting Saturn.
Asteroids.
So that's not.
You're taking leaps ahead. I don't think you and I are ever. I mean, who knows? They might come up with some technology that keeps us alive, like fucking Futurama. We're like Nixon's head in Futurama talking. But within the next 10 years, dude, like our kids, Robbie, Lucy, they have the potential that they could be project managers on a program that's managing drones that are pulling an asteroid back to Earth to mine it.
Yeah.
Not just to go fucking poke it and get like, a fucking shot glass worth of fucking samples back so we can guess at what the start of the universe was. No. So they're bringing a fucking bedroom-sized chunk back so that we can pull some fucking gold and platinum out of it and make some more cell phones for all the fucking liberals that hate the fucking capitalist system. That's what's in the next 10 years, dude. And what's going to happen is you're all of a sudden space is going to turn into this new frontier, just like the fucking United States was. And it's going to be this amazing place for people to dream about going and be able to capture their dreams and go do it. It's just like it's so cliche, but it's the new gold rush. They're going to be able to go.
Yeah, it is.
And it's not about the money, but put their stamp on history, dude. Some people might not be remembered by name in history other than some obscure museum that looks into it and knows this person was there, but only the tourists that show up know about it. But that's something that I want in life, right? I want to know that when I died, that history was going down this path, and I showed up and it did a little bit of this, but it was for the pod. Right. Let's say it did this. It wasn't Hitler and it did this. It course corrected and it went up. That's what I think a lot of people want that. And the recognition is great, but the idea that you could be the first fucking space construction crew that builds the first gas station in space. Because now we don't have to. We just all we got to do is get them to. All we got to do is get spaceships to orbit, and then they can refuel, and then they go to fucking Mars, and then they go to Titan, and then we build. We go to fucking Mars. The Super Bowl of 2065 is on the fucking moon, and Tom Brady's 90 years old, and he's throwing 300-yard touchdowns because the gravity's nothing. That's what I want.
Because he's got the ball filled with helium or something too. But whatever. Don't talk about that.
So I encourage people to look into SpaceX and what they're doing. And Boca Chica, there are so many people that just all they do is spend their time documenting. They have their own jobs, they do their own thing. It's funny because one of the outfits that does it's called Rio Grande Valley aerial photography or aerial videos or something. We had looked at them when we were looking at Border Fence when I was at Barnard. We had looked at them at doing some stuff for us, drone footage and shit. These guys they do footage. And I think they do it for free. I don't know if they're paid or not. I honestly don't know. But all of the stuff I watch on SpaceX at Boca Chica, it's got the little RGV video company, and they do drone footage and they fly around in airplanes and they take footage of stuff. So I'm such a fucking nerd, dude. I grew up as a kid wanting to be an astronaut, right? And
Yeah.
I don't know why I shifted away from it. It's not like I don't want to not be like, honestly, I could be, if like they called me up right now and we're like, we're making Space Marines, you know, ODSD super troopers like fucking Halo. I'd starve myself for 6 months and run every day just to get back into shape so I could fucking ride that fucking pod down once. Yeah! Like a fucking ODST trooper on Halo. Like I still got that. I've still got that aliens in me, and all I get to do is live through it vicariously through watching this stuff. But it gives me hope.
There was a series, The Expanse.
The Expanse is,
which is kind of cool.
I love The Expanse,
it's got Martian Marines, dude, that are like badass.
They're Mars Marines and they're super badass.
Yeah,
they're like the most feared people on the planet. I'm like, yes, fucking Marines, yes.
Damn right.
Yeah, but this stuff gives me hope, man, and I have to think that because it gives me hope and inspires me for the future, that it does for other people too. It has to, right?
And this is happening in the United States.
That's so
this
much.
This is not happening in Russia or fucking some South American, you know, banana republic. This is happening in the United States, and that only happens in a society like us. This isn't happening in China or any place else. It's happening.
No, it's happening in China. You know what China just did last week?
If you say they landed on the dark side of the moon and that's some sort of an achievement, I'm going to puke.
That's the sarcasm to it. They accomplished what we accomplished 60 fucking years ago.
Yeah, with a fucking slide rule. And they're like, we landed on the dark side of the moon. Like, yeah, dude, that's so 1969. Yeah, cool. We put a human there.
It's like a robot. In Matt Damon's, you know, The Martian, and the guy's like, he's sitting in there and he's like, in all respect to your CNS-8 protocols, we haven't done that since Apollo 8.
Well, that's what happens when the Chinese own the movie studio. But anyway, I digress.
No, that was making fun of them. That is literally what we're saying.
He's making fun of them. Like the Chinese came in and saved the day, and it's like, with all due respect,
Werner von Braun did that when he was still working for Hitler.
Yeah.
No, there's so much good out there, and I think that's what a lot of us get away from anymore nowadays is we focus so much on the bad, and negative, it's not because people are bad people. I do it too. It's so much easier to focus on that and dive into that. It's such a more magnetic force, and part of it's because it's everywhere, right? That there's so much good out there and so much awesomeness to look at what people are doing and appreciate the effort that people put into stuff. I mean, there's a likely chance that there's a couple hundred people. I'm assuming a couple hundred. It might be a couple thousand people at SpaceX have been working for 5-6 years on Starship. They're going to get their first kind of real test flight. They've had some test flights, little short hops and stuff to test the motors and things like that. Tomorrow is the first time they're going to test this belly flop, skydive, spaceship fucking lunacy. And I say that with as much adoration as I can, because the whole idea that you're going to land in a spaceship on a barge in the ocean was lunacy. Right. They're going to test this hopefully tomorrow.
Goes up, flips over,
and this thing's going to go up. It's going to do a fucking cartwheel in the air. It's going to skydive down like fucking, what's his face in Drop Zone? Fucking Wesley Snipes in Drop Zone. It's going to get close to the ground. It's going to fire up the biggest rockets, the most powerful rockets ever created by man. It's going to restart them, which if you're not a rocket ship nerd, you don't understand how hard it is to actually restart. Not just to light it. Like, these aren't rocket engines you light a fuse and run away like a firework. The idea that you can restart a rocket engine is insane. Like, that's so hard. So this thing's going to go up. It's going to do a flip. It's going to free fall back over the fucking Gulf of Mexico. It's going to get kind of close to the ground. It's going to fire up the biggest fucking rocket engines ever known to man. It's going to fucking flip itself over, and then it's going to correct itself, and it's going to land on a concrete pad. I mean, I wouldn't stand anywhere within 10 miles of it, but it'd be fun to watch from a video camera.
Right.
That's going to happen. That's going to happen tomorrow, dude. That's the world we live in. We live in a time and age when our biggest problems aren't, you know, I got a cut on my hand and I'm going to die from an infection. Though that's what a lot of people are acting like right now with COVID. It's...
Oh, yeah. Did you sneeze in America?
And, dude, I coughed at the fucking liquor store the other day. I had a mask on and everything. I coughed. It was like I had just fucking... it's like I had said 9 F-bombs in a row, which I kind of do here already, which I'm trying to work on.
I was in the airport. I was in Salt Lake City going home for Thanksgiving, and this guy took his mask off like this, and he put like a handkerchief up, and he blew his nose, and like five people stared at him like he just dropped the N word. Like they were like, "Did you just blow your nose?" Like it was amazing. Like they were all like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, "Wow, the guy blew his nose." Like a year ago. Oh shit. 9
In a
months ago, nobody would have
handkerchief.
cared.
He's not even
In a
blowing
handkerchief,
snot.
yeah. It wasn't like he was
You know how
blowing
many times I
snot
go to the
rockets.
fucking bathroom and just blow a snot rocket? I mean, that's if I'm in a nice place. On the construction site, I did it all the time. Just blew snot rockets every day out at Vegas. It was just easier. I didn't have anything to touch. Just
Yeah, it was. It was dust.
done, gone, out of the way.
But yeah, we touched on that last week, man, and it was, it's easier to tear something down than it is to build something, and that's the same with
Yeah.
positivity and negative. It takes effort to look for the positives, and it's super easy to get wrapped around the axle
I
with the
heard this from
negative.
Sean Whalen, and it sticks with me a lot. And I know he didn't originate it. He's just who I heard it through. But it's easy to criticize the gladiator from the stands. Gladiators don't criticize each other because they're in the fight. If you're not willing to get down in the fucking arena and fight, shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up. If you're not willing to get down there and argue and verbalize, I mean, we saw this with that Facebook post, and I'm not, God forbid I call him out again, but you saw that where when you're willing to actually go to the ground and fight for your beliefs factually and honestly is the biggest thing.
Right.
You can be off on your facts, but at least you're honest in why you believe them. I have so much more respect than somebody who just doesn't want to argue about stuff. And if you're not willing to get in the arena and fight, if all you want to do is throw fucking tomatoes from the stands, shut the fuck up.
Exactly.
You know what? I could disagree with you. You could be a fucking raging communist. But if you want to get in the arena with me and argue, I will respect you. I might not like you, but I will respect you. And I will treat you with a different respect than somebody who's a fucking a keyboard warrior who just doesn't actually post anything, just shit talks. Oh, your idea is dumb. Oh, this is stupid.
Yeah, like you said, if you can be wrong, like it's okay to be wrong. Like people make mistakes. Like no one's infallible. You can be wrong, and as long as like you can back it up, then take the correction.
No. My 5-year-old is infallible, at least according to her.
My wife.
See, you went there. I wasn't gonna.
John, let me tell you what you don't know.
You can't get LASIK.
Get LASIK. Your eyes are fucked. The phone's gonna ring when this goes off. Let's see here. How long are we in?
No. This is a test to see if she listens to the whole thing or just says she does.
The moment you text me and tell me this thing's live, I'm gonna hit start on the timer to see how long it takes me to text your call. Stay in California. Well, on that, we should probably close. It's been
You're now on the no-fly list, John.
Yeah.
Because
I'm coming from
you. Anonymous tip.
Anonymous tip. He's a terrorist. He's been building bombs in his California hut somewhere down by the border.
Yeah, I think you're right. We'll wrap it up here, man. It was fun though. This started off. I'm not gonna lie. I was kind of sketch about it. I didn't have a good feeling when we started, but we got going, and I think it was good. We hop around a lot.
We didn't have a lot of time to do a lot of homework.
I hope self-aggrandization here we were starting off with, but everybody that listened and stuck with us through this, I hope you guys enjoyed it. John and I are here to have fun with it. We want to spread words and come here, Luz. We want to spread words. We want to talk. We want to have fun with it. But we want to be entertaining for you guys.
Hey, listen,
and here's the other two right here coming to say hi. Look over here.
Debbie.
You guys gonna wave to everybody? You're not just waving to John. This is the podcast, so you're saying hi to everybody.
Like who else?
Everybody that watches this.
Yeah. Who's that? Who is all saying hi on there? I don't see any.
Nobody yet, honey. This is recorded. But anyway, sorry.
Yep, no worries.
This was great, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it again. For YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. It helps our channel out a lot. It helps us grow. We're super tiny right now, like sand on a beach speck tiny, which we're okay with.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong. This is as therapeutic.
Hey,
for
we have
me
32 followers.
Subscribers.
We broke 30. That's right.
If you guys are listening to this on a podcast that allows ratings, make sure you hit that 5-star or whatever the top rating your podcast allows, because it helps us out there. And John and I are going to keep up with this, whether you like it or not. If you don't like it, I assume you're going to stop listening to us. If you like it, hopefully you giggled with us as we were saying dumb stuff and having some fun. I think I was drinking some whiskey tonight. I think I'm going to do that more often.
As was I.
It loosens me up a little bit. For those that don't like the language, I am working on it. I know it kind of got out of hand towards the end because, again, the whiskey, but I am working on that.
Me too.
Your guys' account
it's hard.
to it. We want to get to where we're PG, so more people can listen. But we appreciate everybody's support. It's been great. John and I are having a blast doing this.
Yeah,
and
it's a great time.
We'll keep it up every week. We'll start adding stuff in here. I think we've got a couple of good sound clips we'll turn into videos just by itself, and we'll keep going. Looking forward to 2021 and being able to rag
and that's
on
the dad and 2 Marine dads right there.
We're gonna be able, we're looking. John won't admit it, but I am. We're hoping Biden wins just so we have a good year. We can beat on Biden like they beat on Trump.
Which means CNN and the podcast.
Talk about how he wants to. So it's Russian hookers for Trump. What do we say that Biden pays for dogs to pee on him, or where do we go from there?
And break his legs. He's in the pain. I don't know. Something. You got to say it with a Russian accent.
Yeah.
Dogs with the pain.
Yeah. Dogs with the pee.
Hey, John.
All right, guys. Thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next episode. John, you stay safe in California. I'm expecting to see one of those border walls.
We'll do. Oh, like that? Yeah. See if we can.
All right, bud.
All right. Have a good night. Bye, guys.